Hey, what's good, everybody? Shout out to my YouTube land people out there. Yes, welcome back to the channel. And yes, you already see the title of this video. This is where I'm going to be giving my breakdown of my personal list of the top 10 NBA players that I think of all time. Now, of course, before I give this list, this is just my opinion, and there's certain things that I look for in specific players. One thing I do value is I value a leader, of course. I do value production, and I value if you're not, for the most part, a locker room distraction. So, with that being said, this is just my personal list. And, if you agree, you agree. If you disagree, you disagree. But just remember that this is my opinion. And also, before I start, I just want to say this. Now, Kobe Bryant, growing up, yes, he was my favorite player. This is going to be an unbiased list. And one thing that I will say about Kobe Bryant, as much as I enjoyed watching him play, by no means am I a fan of Kobe Bryant. I enjoy watching Kobe Bryant, and that's simply that. Yes, he is my favorite player of all time. But I will even say this, that nobody is subjected to not being criticized. And that's one point of contention that I have with, especially with regards to the media on how they portray LeBron James. He rarely gets criticized, if ever. And to me, no player is subjected from criticism. Every player can get criticized, and every person has the right to their own list. Now, I'm gonna say that yes, I do personally believe that Kobe Bryant is overrated. Now, is he one of the best players to ever play? I would like to think so. Some people may not. And I've heard good takes on why Kobe Bryant is not in certain people's top 10. And that's totally fine by me. Like I said, growing up, when Kobe was on his ascension to winning and leading the Lakers to the two championships, of course, there was a lot of debate between, who was the best player in the league. Now, mostly, it was out of Kobe and LeBron. Now, and and shout out to my two guys. Shout out to my boy Greed, and shout out to my boy Easy E. Now, Greed, he does like LeBron. That's his guy, and that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. My boy Easy E, he liked Dwayne Wade. I certainly remember that. He really enjoyed watching Dwayne Wade. And even there was a debate between Kobe and Wade. But the point is, growing up, yeah, I've heard it all about Kobe. He's a ball hog. He's this. He's that. And there are some good points and good arguments about Kobe Bryant's career. So, me back in middle school, a lot of the kids there, they liked LeBron, and they actually, they like LeBron more than Kobe. So, but the point of what I'm trying to say is, yes, at one point I will say that when I was a little bit younger and immature, yeah, I would label myself as a Kobe fan. Now, I would never get triggered. If somebody said that LeBron was greater than Kobe, that's their opinion, and that's totally fine. I never get triggered about that. It is what it is. Everybody, the beauty of basketball is that, and the beauty of opinions is that, it does make for a good debate. But I think facts have to be pointed out. Of course, whenever you're talking about any player, there have to be facts involved. Um, and like I said, with Kobe, yeah, I do think he's overrated. Now, me necessarily, I would not put Kobe in the top five. That's just me. And like I said, Kobe is definitely my favorite player. But and most of all, you know, um, Kobe's not here, so rest in peace to him. But that does not mean that he is devoided of any kind of criticism. I don't believe in that. I didn't grow up like that. And if you're supposed to be the best player in the league, the best player on your team, if you lose, yeah, you're damn right. You're gonna take some of that blame, of course. Um, that's just how my mentality works. Whoever is supposed to be the best player through production, through leadership, yes, if the team loses, you have to take some of that blame. There is something that you could have done within the game to help your team win. And now I know this is going to be a divisive video, and I also want to say this. Um, you know, this is like I said, this is just my opinion. Like everything I'm about to say is not. I don't have a script or anything. I know I've said that before. Everything that I say is from the heart. This is just what I'm thinking and how I feel. But yes, um, everybody's list is different, and that's totally fine. And damn, I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. Well, my goodness. Well, anyway, so you know, certain players like Kobe and stuff like that. Yeah, I do think his career is a bit overrated. But like I said, I do enjoy watching Kobe Bryant play. But nobody nobody is perfect, and everybody can be criticized, especially when playing basketball if you enjoy the sport. Now, as far as for my top 10 list, um, now what I will say is this, right? Right, this is what I was gonna say. Whether you like the video, whether you dislike the video, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you subscribe, whether you unsubscribe, it really doesn't matter to me. Like I said, this is just my opinion, and you can feel free to do whatever you like on this channel. So if a lot of people decide to unsubscribe because of my take on the top 10, then that's fine with me. It's not a problem. But like I said, these are just my opinions, and I'm going to be stating a lot of facts, and I just want everybody to keep up. So, as far as for who I think, well, let me start by saying this also. Of course, this, you have to kind of go by era. It's not going to be a perfect system because certain players didn't play against each other. Certain rules were different in certain eras. So, of course, that's always going to be the disclaimer whenever you're trying to cross reference from certain eras. Who's to say that Wilt wouldn't have dominated Jordan? Who's to say that Durant wouldn't have dominated Charles Barkley? Some of these guys, they just never played against each other. So, of course, you have to go by eras. So, for me, I think for a lot of people, what they would consider Michael Jordan to be number one. And yeah, that's who I think is number one. And the reason why is because he was the best player in arguably, it's debatable. Everything everything is debatable, but he was the best player in the best era of basketball, which is the 90s. Now, yes, he did come in the mid 80s, but he didn't start winning and having team success until the 90s. So yeah, you had a ton of talent. You had guys like Malone, Stockton, Barkley. These are just some of the names and Hall of Famers that Jordan has beaten during his time. Of course, you have the glove, Gary Payton, and that legendary '96 Sonics team, and that legendary season that he had, winning Defensive Player of the Year. One of the only or one of the few, I should say, guards. I think him and Michael Jordan won Defensive Player of the Year. I might be missing somebody else. One defensive guru that comes to mind, I think, is Alvin Robertson. Um, I could be mistaken. Maybe he won Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe, but I know. I think did Sidney Moncrief. I don't know if Sidney Moncrief won Defensive Player of the Year. He was another highly defensive guard. But yeah, so I have Jordan at number one. And to me, like I said, Jordan played in one of the greatest eras of basketball. Um, and he's arguably one of the most skilled players of all time. And he led the Bulls multiple 60 win years, and hands down he was the he had a lot of production, averaging at least 30 points per game, but highly productive, highly skilled, and even though this is one thing that I hear about Jordan, that he had Scottie Pippen. Now, of course, Jordan. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Jordan, I would say, has really helped Scottie Pippen's career. And one thing that you can look at is when they played the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals in 1990, and that was the infamous series where in Game 7, Scottie says out of his own mouth, with all the punishment and the physicality of that series, Game 7, this is his quote, "I couldn't answer the bell," end quote. That's what he said. So as far as for people saying that, Jordan needed Scottie, of course, I do think that Jordan needed Scottie, but he was by no means a superstar. Jordan was an absolute superstar in one of the greatest eras of basketball, which is the 90s. You had plenty of teams, plenty of different styles, and a lot of people, especially even Kobe. Kobe definitely patterned his game after Jordan. So, and I think Jordan is miles ahead of Kobe. I don't think Kobe is in the same league as Jordan. I think they're both great players. But Jordan's production is a lot better than Kobe Bryant's production. It's not even close. In my opinion, it's not close. Some people have Kobe right behind Jordan. That's their opinion. I don't think so. And this is coming from a guy that really enjoys watching Kobe Bryant. So this is an unbiased opinion that I have here, that yes, Jordan is leagues ahead of Kobe Bryant. So I have him at number one. And also, how can I forget one of the greatest two-way superstars of all time, one of the most popular superstars of all time, and this is all on Michael Jordan's resume: multiple scoring titles, MVPs. He beat out some legendary competition, and he's also led the Bulls to that 72-10 win season. That was a record held, and the record was 69 wins that the Bulls broke from the Lakers in the 1971-72 season, I want to say. So they, and that Lakers record was 69. So they broke that. They had a really good team. And yeah, he was just a beast. Highlights, crazy, some of the craziest highlights you'll ever see. Dunked on multiple centers. A smooth, buttery fadeaway. I mean, Jordan was the complete package, and he was damn near flawless. One of the knocks that you could really say about Jordan was that his 3-point game was not very good, but he made threes when it counted, especially in that series where he did the shrug versus Portland, and another game. I want to say Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals, where he made a lot of threes in the last game. So, Jordan is capable of knocking down threes, especially when it counts. but he just wasn't prolific at the 3 point line. And he's had multiple seasons where he's averaged over 50% from the field, and that's an important stat that I will be coming back to later. Field goal percentage is very important, and it combines your the shots you make from within the 3 point line and outside of the 3 point line. And he's also averaged, I think, 83 to 84% from the line. So Jordan is one hell of a player. I think that he's the greatest because he played in the greatest era of basketball, and he's arguably one of the most skilled players of all time. I would give him that title. He was just phenomenal. So next, for number 2, I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and this one I have out of respect for Kareem. He is he's one of the most deadly offensive players of all time. And you could definitely make the argument which shot is more effective, the hook, the sky hook, or the Michael Jordan fadeaway. Now, me, I would go with the sky hook. The Jordan fadeaway is damn good. It's really really good, highly effective. Jordan perfected his craft with that jump shot, and he has made it work for himself. But the sky hook, with Kareem's 7-foot frame and him shooting over the top of defenders and making it, I mean, that really helps. Oh, and speaking of that, let me also say this, right? Jordan was the first, I would say, prototype wing player that really, you could look at Dr. J, I will say that, when he played in the ABA, but as far as for being like a wing player and a guard, Jordan was definitely the first guard that ushered in that you can win with a guard. He was the first player that really, a wing player. I wouldn't say a guard, but a wing. He was really the first one in the NBA to really usher in that mentality of ownership, saying, okay, we can win behind a really good guard, and also this has to be pointed out too. Jordan also dominated in an era filled with a ton of great centers, guys like Shaq, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon. There's a David Robinson. I mean, there's so many to name, but he's dominated during an era where really the big man was really dominant. And I'm gonna get back to Kareem, but I wanted to point this out. Before Jordan really started winning, the mindset, and you can even look back at when he got drafted. That's why Sam Bowie in that legendary '84 draft. That's why Portland selected Sam Bowie over Jordan, because before Jordan started really winning, there weren't any real dominant wing players, shooting guards to be exact, that could lead you to the promised land. So Jordan really changed the mold. And that's why you see a lot of guards, how they dominate today and how they have much more, the NBA is not so, the owners are not so stuck on, okay, we need a dominant big man to win. You could kind of thank Jordan for that in a way. But yeah, before that, you had guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like I said, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, a lot of big Moses Malone, a lot of big men really dominated the game. So Jordan was, kind of the first one to really be the prototype of a winning formula with the guard. But anyway, back to Kareem. So Kareem is one of the most highly decorated superstars of the NBA, and yes, he is a superstar. Now, he has played with some great talent, but not really his fault. And when he went to the Lakers, he I don't think he knew that he was gonna land Magic Johnson. So even though he has played with Magic, I don't hold that against him. And like I said, that's really out of respect. He had a 20-year career, multiple-time All-Star, great on defense, defensive guru as well. I would say one of the more underrated defensive players. You don't really hear about Kareem whenever defense is mentioned. Maybe that's just me. But, he's one of the he's one of the more underrated defenders, I would say, because you don't really hear about him. But he's a two-way superstar, deadly, highly potent on offense, high field goal percentage, a very smart player. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Kareem, so I have him at number two. Number three, I have Bill Russell. Now, I will say this about Bill Russell. To me, and this is not really. Um, oh, and let me say this: by no means am I a basketball expert. I should have said that in the beginning, but by no means am I a basketball expert. Like I said, this is just my opinion on my. This is my top 10. You people are very, you're very welcome to agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. It's fine. If you stick around or you want to unsub, it's fine as well. But I'm just giving my opinion, and hopefully you all can at least try to find a common ground with that. But by no means am I a basketball expert. I'm still learning the game, of course. Um, but with that being said, um, you know, and this top 10 could change. This is not forever. This is just, like I said, what I'm thinking right now. Um, but I can definitely make room to put in certain players and take them out if necessary. But as of right now, this is my top 10. So it's not a perfect system. And like I said, I'm still learning the game. So one thing, yeah, so with Bill Russell, he did play in an era where, um, there wasn't really player mobility and free agency and stuff like that. And, one of the things, and he's another player that I have out of respect. That's why I have him at number three. And he's also arguably one of the greatest defensive players to ever play. Now, even though there were not blocks recorded in his era, there's plenty of testimony of how good he was as a shot blocker and some footage. But yeah, I have him at number three out of respect. He's definitely a winner, one of the first winners to lead a dynasty, which was the Boston Celtics. He's a 10-time NBA champion. Maybe 11, I could be wrong, but I know he's definitely a 10-time as a player, and I think one as a coach. But yeah, but what I will say is this, right? So I kind of give him like half credit for those championship titles, you know, um, because of the era that he played in, and there weren't any real dominant big men. You got to remember this was back during the '60s, and there weren't many stats recorded. Like I said, there weren't many accomplishments. I mean, you did have MVP, but you didn't have Finals MVP. But you did have regular season MVP. You had the championship title. Then you had like All NBA, All Defense, stuff like that. But that wasn't until I think the '70s when they had All Defense. But yeah, just a remarkable talent. And like I said, one of the most dominant defensive leaders and defensive players of all time, according to testimonies. And like I said, out of respect, I have Bill at number three. Spectacular talent. So even if you want to like I said, even if I give him half credit with all of those championships, that still leaves him with 5 championships. If you want to give him half credit, that still adds up to 5 titles. And that's still a lot better than a lot of players, being the leader and the best player. And, people want to say that the knock on Bill is that people want to say that, not only was there no free agency, but the team that he had on Boston was littered with Hall of Famers. Well, this was a point that I've heard before. Well, Bill Russell, the Celtics, they didn't start winning until they got Bill Russell. Bill Russell in his rookie season won the NBA championship. So they didn't start winning until they got Bill Russell. So, and they've been around for a long time. I think Bob Cousy was on that team. Paul, was it Bill Sharman? I think it was Bill Sharman. He was on that team. Another decorated player. And they were around for about 5 or so years. They haven't won anything. Really, the Minneapolis Lakers were winning. And I think the Hawks. Let me see. Yeah, the Lakers, the Hawks, St. Louis, the Nationals, the Syracuse Nationals. Yeah, but mostly the Minneapolis Lakers. So once Bill Russell got there, then they started winning. So at number 4, I have Irvin Magic Johnson. Yes, Magic Johnson is at number 4, and that completes the Mount Rushmore of my NBA top 10. So this is the Mount Rushmore section, the top 4. So Magic Johnson is the 4th best player. And I mentioned this in a previous video of NBA Street. I remember this. Yeah, one of the greatest leaders of all time. Definitely a Hall of Fame talent, no question about it. And like I said, a true leader. Now, he wasn't he wasn't really known for his defense. I'm sure he gave effort and stuff like that, but he wasn't really known for his defense. But being a facilitator, controlling the tempo of the game, being a smart player, yeah, that's Magic Johnson. Just an exceptional talent. Um, he can pass, and like I said, he can control the game. Um, and he's beaten some high level competition, such as Dr. J, Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas. He's beaten some high profile players. Um, you know, he didn't get a chance to, but he did play against Michael Jordan, but he didn't win. That was Michael Jordan's first championship in '91, and that was the year that I think the year prior, in 1990, that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's last season, I want to say, and in '91 they had I think did they have Vlade Divac? I think, and he actually took that team to the NBA Finals. So, but I mean, of course, they didn't win, but that was remarkable enough that Magic was able to lead that team without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the finals, and they famously beat the Portland Trailblazers in the Western Conference Finals. So yeah, Magic Johnson, just a really high profile player, very good, multiple time MVP, led the Lakers to one of the best records in NBA history. That 86-87 Lakers team, just spectacular. You had some really good talent, but Magic Johnson was the leader. He won MVP that year, and he won Finals MVP, I think. Yeah, and he was a champion. So he's a 5-time NBA champion. He infamously also stepped in for Kareem in the 1980 NBA Finals as a rookie. Stepped in as center and went to war with who was that? Was that Daryl Dawkins? Was it? I want to say that was Daryl Dawkins. Um, let me check. Yeah, that was. So he went to war with Daryl Dawkins in that final game, Game 6. One of the most legendary moments of Magic Johnson's career. Yeah, he completely went to war with Daryl Dawkins in that series. But yeah, Magic Johnson is a heck of a talent. So I have him at number 4. At number 5, I have Larry Bird. Yes, Larry Legend. One of the most, another deadly offensive weapon. Truly a great. He's another guy that can control the game. And speaking of eras, right? He's another player that dominated in his era. And that's another thing. Magic Johnson also dominated in his era. So the 80s, you could make the argument that it was Magic, Bird, and you can kind of make the argument it was Isaiah, maybe, but I wouldn't say so. But you know, yeah, the 80s was dominated by Magic and Bird. Here's a fun fact. Throughout the 80s, from from the 1979-1980 season, which was also the beginning of the modern era of basketball, because that ushered in the 3-point line. Now, the thing about the 3-point line is that they merged with the ABA. So the ABA had the 3-point line, but once the NBA did the merger, that's when they included the 3-point line and the dunk contest. So that's a fun fact there. But yes, that's when Magic Johnson stepped into and Larry Bird. They both stepped into the league in the 1979-1980 season. So from 79-80 to 88-89, that's the 10-year stretch. Both players were involved in the finals every year, at least one of them. So in 80, it was the Lakers versus the 76ers. Right? In 81, it was the Celtics versus the Houston Rockets. Let me check that though. I could be wrong, but let me check. Yeah, it was the Lakers versus the Houston Rockets. In 82, it was the Lakers versus the 76ers. 83, the 76ers versus the Lakers. 84, Boston versus LA. 85, LA versus Boston. 86, Boston versus Houston. 87, the Lakers versus Boston. 88, the Lakers versus Detroit. And in 89, Detroit versus the Lakers. So in every other, kind of every other year, but they both dominated the 80s. One of the best small forwards. I would consider the best small forward, just my opinion. Just like Magic Johnson was, I would say, the best point guard of all time. Larry Bird, the best small forward of all time. So with that being said, Larry Bird, 3-time MVP, back to back to back. And that was from 1984 to 1986. And hold on as I take a sip of water here. Okay. And in 84 and 86, Larry Bird won. When he won MVP, he was an NBA champion and a 2-time Finals MVP. And let me say this, right? That's one of the remarkable accomplishments. Whenever you can win MVP and win a NBA championship and the NBA Finals MVP, that is a truly complete season. So Jordan has done that. I want to say Bill Russell has done that. I don't think Kareem has done that, but he's one of the most accomplished superstars in NBA history. Multiple time All-Star and all that good stuff. And then Magic did that in 87, the 86-87 season. And Larry Bird did that twice, 83-84 and 85-86. And that 85-86 team was really, really good. That was I want to say their highest win percentage, where they won over 60 games. I want to say over 65 games, something like that. And they had a crazy record. I think their record at home was like 41-1 or something like that. Just incredible. They might have been undefeated that season at home. I could be wrong. Could be wrong about that, but they had a really good record. But yeah, Larry Bird was the main option on his team. Just like Jordan was the main option. Bill Russell was not the main option on his team, but he was the leader, of course, and the defensive leader. Kareem, you can make the argument that he was the leader, but it definitely was shared between him and Magic. But he was definitely the weapon to use on offense. And Magic Johnson was just the facilitator. And for Larry Bird, he played with the legendary Celtics team, Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge, Bill Walton. I mean, oh man, the talent just amazing. Oh, excuse me. I don't know if you all heard that. Kind of burped a little bit. But yeah, just amazing talent. Incredible. And yeah, like I said, 3-time back-to-back MVP. the greatest small forward, dominated the '80s along with Magic Johnson, and along with Magic Johnson, those two were one of the key players that it was mentioned that they could dominate the game without having to, how do you say it, without having to score so many points. So they could have a stat line where Bird would go, like 5 for 10 from the field. He might only take 10 shots, but he makes half of them. That's 10 points. He might make, 2 free throws, go 2 for 2 at the free throw line, but he'll have, maybe like, maybe like 10 rebounds, 12 assists, like that. Just an absolute maestro on the court, controlling the tempo, and just a deadly offensive weapon. Talk about a man with a really good jump shot. Yeah, that was Larry Bird. And there's so much to talk about with him. Um, you know, and the reason why I have Magic over Bird is because in head-to-head competition, Magic has a winning record against Bird. So Magic is 2-1 in the finals against Bird. I believe Magic is 5-2 overall as a finals record, and Bird has a 3-2 finals record. I want to say, yeah, 3-2, right? Yeah, he lost twice, won once, won another 2 times. Yeah, he has a 3-2 record. But don't let that fool you. That guy was great. If it weren't for injuries, I think a lot of people would have him a little bit higher. But injuries definitely derailed his career. But man, for a short stint, Larry Bird was the man. He was really exceptional. Just a great player. So much respect to him. At number 6, I have Tim Duncan. Yeah, you see it? The man right here. Timmy D. Big fundamentals. Now, Timmy Tim. 2-time MVP. Back-to-back. 2002, 2003. The greatest power forward. I know I mentioned that in another video. I want to say when I played Karl Malone in NBA Street. Yeah, when I played the Jazz. Yes, I don't think it's close. Um, just a dominant force. He played both sides of the ball. Oh, and that's another thing about Larry Bird. He also, him, just like Magic, they both weren't, they could play defense. They gave some effort, but that's not really what they were known for. But when you talk about controlling the pace of the game, these guys were amazing. They're not going to wow you with their defense and their athleticism, but just their intelligence of the game, trying to get everybody involved, doing other things if their shot is not falling. That's the stuff that made those guys great. They can control the game without having to score, which is something that's very underrated, but those guys were incredible. Don't get me wrong about that. So yeah, like I was saying, Tim Duncan, I have him at number 6, the greatest power forward of all time. Really good, 7 foot. This guy, 260 pounds. This guy was really, really good. A two-way superstar, absolute beast. One of the greatest defensive players of all time. Definitely he's up there. He has won 5 championships. He's lost 1 time, I want to say. Yeah, and that was against the Miami Heat, and I'll come back to that later. But yeah, 5-time NBA champion. Would have had 6 if it wasn't for Ray Allen. I'm just saying. But yeah, this guy was really, really unstoppable. In an era where there was so much defense, he really stood out as a defensive presence, a leader, not a locker room headache. Really just a great guy to really build a team around. And he also did the complete season. He won MVP in the 2002-2003 season. He won NBA MVP. He won Finals MVP, and he got a championship. So that was a complete season. He has done that as well. Yeah, like I said, just a real spectacular player. And um, yeah, just you know his he gets and Tim Duncan I would say is underrated as an all time great, and he gets a lot of flack for his lack of personality. But who cares when you're a killer on the court? He's one of those guys who's like a silent killer. He wouldn't really talk too much. He let his game do the talking, and his game was damn good. You know, highly efficient, and that's really what you want out of a player. Highly efficient, multiple seasons, averaging over 50% from the field. And I mean, that's the thing with a lot of big men. Their field goal percentage generally is going to be higher because they're taking higher percentage shots because they're closer to the basket. So, but still, even with that, he's shooting over 50%, which is incredible. High point per game average. And just like I said, just an incredible leader. So, the reason why I don't have him higher than I would say Larry Bird and Magic Johnson is because during the later years, and I mean to be fair, right? He does have 5 championships on his resume, one of which came during a lockout year, which was in the 98-99 season. And the NBA was going through a lockout, so they didn't play all 82 games. Excuse me while I drink my water. But they did not play all 82 games. They only played, I want to say, like 50 or something like that. And they did not have the All-Star game. Or they did, but they changed it to what was it, the two ball? It was something like that. It was crazy. Um, but yeah, they didn't have the conventional All Star game. So that was a lockout year. So a lot of people kind of don't count that. But even with that, right? Even if you want to, whether you want to give him half credit or no credit, that's still he has 4.5 championships on his resume, right? And I would argue that he has four. As far as like the credit that should be given for that, three of which undoubtedly he was the best player, and then the final one, he was really out of his prime, still productive but out of his prime, back in 2014 when Kawhi Leonard won NBA Finals MVP, but he was still productive, out of his prime but productive, but he kind of played the back seat as far as being the workhorse on the offensive end, and letting the rest of the team, mostly Kawhi, and Ginobili and those guys, letting them blossom in the offense. But undoubtedly a great team system, you know? Remarkable player, clutch. Larry Bird was clutch also. Michael Jordan clutch. Kareem clutch. Bill Russell not really known for his offense, but it's okay. And Magic Johnson was definitely clutch. Yeah, man, just a remarkable talent. Greatest power forward of all time, hands down. Yeah. So at number 7, I have Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, before I give my reason why, number 8 I do have Shaquille O'Neal, but at number 7, the reason why I have Hakeem there is because with Hakeem Olajuwon, right? He how do you say it? He also had a complete season, and he had one of the best complete seasons. He won NBA regular season MVP, Finals MVP, NBA champion, Defensive Player of the Year, All NBA First Team, All NBA Defensive First Team in the same year. It's just incredible. The only other player to really rival that was Jordan, but he didn't win a championship the year that he won Defensive Player of the Year. And I forgot to mention that, I think. But yeah, he was one of the few players to win Defensive Player of the Year, Jordan, along with Gary Payton. But yeah, Jordan did win Defensive Player of the Year in 87-88. He had like 200 steals and 100 blocks. Just incredible defense, along with being a very good on-ball defender. Now, like I said, the reason why I have him behind Duncan and ahead of Shaq, I think that Duncan had a better overall career and, of course, a longer prime. But with Hakeem, that's why I have him Duncan over Hakeem, and he was more successful as a champion, and he won one more MVP than Hakeem Olajuwon. So when it comes to Hakeem, right, for him, um, he beat Shaq in the 1995 NBA Finals. So they went up head to head, and that team actually they swept the Orlando Magic. This is when Shaq was on the Magic. So Hakeem was the driving force behind that. And not to mention, Hakeem not only he went from having a completely dominant season in 93, 94, that with all those accomplishments that I just laid out, in 94, 95, the very next year, oh, and by the way, before I forget, I'm kind of all over the place, I know. But just try to bear with me. Also, Tim Duncan, I would say, shares responsibility in being one of the most dominant players of his era, which is the 2000s. And that era is highlighted by, I would say, Shaq, Kobe, and Tim Duncan. So those three players, I would say, were the dominant forces in the 2000s. But anyway, continuing on with Hakeem, right? The 2 years that the 1.5 years that Jordan retired, because he did come back in '95, but he was rusty in '95. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this man, he won 6 championships from '91 to '93, retired, played baseball, came back in '95, the '94-'95 season, but he was rusty. But then he did another 3P from '96 to '98, and they had Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc on that team. That was a really good team, but that team, of course, was led by Michael Jordan. He was the main player of that team, leading them to all those victories. But during the 2 years that I would say that Jordan was out, the NBA title was up for grabs. But Hakeem was the one to grab those 2 championships. And he beat some good competition. He in 93, 94, he battled with the I want to say the Phoenix Suns. It was one of those series where the Phoenix Suns, they were up 3-1 against the Houston Rockets. But he lost. Charles Barkley, the Charles Barkley led Phoenix Suns, they lost 3 games after they were up 3-1 on the Rockets. Hakeem put in some magical performances, and then he, in 94, 95, like I said, he went on a magical run. That team was one of the lowest seeded teams to ever win a championship. And don't forget, it was led by Hakeem Olajuwon. So with Hakeem, he, like I said, he led the team. That's when they had Clyde Drexler, and they just acquired him, I think, in free agency or something like that. Or they might have traded for him, I'm not sure. But that was a good piece that fit that team. But with, they were the 6th seed in the NBA in 94-95, entering the playoffs. I forget who they beat. I know they beat David Robinson and the Spurs in the 95 Western Conference Finals. That was just a complete domination from Hakeem Olajuwon. He dominated David Robinson in that series. Another all-time great center, but he respectfully, he destroyed David Robinson. I mean, and David Robinson won MVP that year, but he destroyed David Robinson. So in 94, 95, they go to the NBA Finals and they beat um, the Orlando Magic. So that's why I have him ahead of Shaq, because he led the team to, I mean, of course, if it wasn't for Nick Anderson missing those free throws, I don't know how that series would have turned out. But, he did miss them. But then again, there's something, like I said, that that they could have done. There's something that they could have done to change the series around, but they didn't. And at the end of game one, they actually won off of a rebound putback from Hakeem Olajuwon. So after game one, then they were going to sweep the Magic. And like I said, one of the lowest seeded teams to ever win a title. That was like a magical run for the championship. But it was, like I said, all led by Hakeem Olajuwon and his greatness. That should not be understated. This man is, block leader and stuff like that. And Jordan was such an efficient scorer. High up there in points per game, high up there in steals per game, high up there in efficiency. Just very well accomplished. And Magic. He's actually had some steal records. Magic had some assist titles. Larry Bird, like I said, 3-time MVP. Just a great all-around player. Very, very clutch. And he just had a winning mindset. A lot of these players that I mentioned had a winning mentality. And they were leaders of their teams. That cannot be understated. And they were superstars. These guys were not stars. They were not all-stars. These were superstar caliber players. So everybody that I mentioned, definitely remember that. So with the number 8, like I said, I have Shaquille O'Neal. Now, the reason why I don't have him ahead of Hakeem is simply because Hakeem beat him in the NBA Finals, like I mentioned. It was a good head-to-head battle, but eventually they won. They got swept. That's when Shaq went to the Lakers and continued his dominant run. They had some losing seasons. That's when they had Kobe there. They had some losing seasons, but then they finally broke through in the 1999-2000 season. That's when Shaq won his first and his only MVP. The Lakers won at least like 60-something games, but Shaq was a beast that year. I think he led the NBA in scoring. I'm not sure, but he was such a dominant force. Of course, now the reason why I have Shaq lower on more of the lower end is because, listen, don't get me wrong. He beat some good centers, but they were way out of their prime. By the time Shaq started winning, a lot of the centers like David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, they started getting older. Oh, Dikembe Mutombo, they started getting older, and they weren't really as effective. But Shaq, just with his size alone, he was, I'm not going to say that Shaq was dominant. I mean, you could look at it that way. I would say that he was more physically imposing. And this is not me trying to, try to be all fancy with words and play word salad. He was just the most physically imposing player that the league has ever seen. Along with him and Wilt. Him and Wilt, two of the most physically imposing players the league has ever seen. I would give the edge to Shaq because Wilt played in an era where there weren't many dominant centers that played against Wilt, So, but with Shaq, he did go up against some good centers, but, most of them were out of their prime. And on top of that, the Eastern Conference back then, Shaq, he did lead the Lakers to back-to-back NBA championships. But, it wasn't, how do you say it? It wasn't, the competition wasn't very good. Back in the early 2000s, the Eastern Conference was not good. I'll be the first one to say. A lot of the more dominant teams, like the Lakers and the Spurs, were both in the Western Conference. So pretty much the Western Conference, whoever played in the Western Conference Finals, that was the NBA Finals, pretty much. I mean, they did beat Rick Smits and the Indiana Pacers with Reggie Miller, Jalen Rose, that team. But even that team was they were slightly older. That was a good, smart team, but they were just older. I would love to see the Lakers go up against the '98 version of the Indiana Pacers 2 years prior. Now that would have been a battle, but that's just what it was. But yeah, that era was very weak, so that's why I have Shaq on the lower end. But don't get me wrong, Shaq was great. He led three different franchises to the NBA championship. The Heat. Well, I mean, you could argue that Wade led them, led the team to the NBA Finals. You could definitely say that. But he's in that system, he has been a very integral part of each of his teams making it to the NBA Finals. You know, but you can make the argument that Wade was the better player. It's up to you. But yeah, so that's why I have Shaq at number 8. But yeah, he's a one-time MVP, but he was so good, And Shaq gets a lot of flack for his and I've heard some takes about Shaq, about Shaq not being not him being not as skillful as some of the other centers, and you could definitely make the argument, but to me, in my opinion, I think Shaq, he had a good array of post moves. He could do a post hook. He couldn't fade, but he could do a hook. He could drop step. He could turn and dunk. And it was so hard to officiate Shaq because he was so big and strong. And at that time, they played in such a physical era in the early 2000s. So, but yeah, Shaq was really good. So I have him at number 8. Now, at number 9, I have Kobe Bean Bryant. Yes, let's go ahead and look at the brother. Yeah, Kobe Bryant. So, this guy, well accomplished. Rest in peace to my dude. Well accomplished. Kobe Bryant, one of the most decorated superstars, of course, of all time. He's won an MVP, 2-time Finals MVP. He's led his team to at least one 60 win team as far as for him being the leader. And he's also been as a sidekick with Shaq on that 2000 team that they won 60 games. So he's been a part of that twice. One on the sidekick and one as the main guy. So in better terms, one as being Robin and one as being Batman. you know. But yeah, Kobe Bryant he was really good. Very clutch, good on the. Now I will say this about Kobe, he was, to me, he was a good defender. He was a good to very good defender. I would not say that Kobe was a great defender, but I would say that he was good to very good. That's what I will say about Kobe. He was good to very good. Um, but other than that, yeah, he was, he had a long career. Um, just he had a winning mentality just like Shaq. That's why they butted heads. Olajuwon had a winning mentality, very good leader and stuff like that. And I want to say this about Olajuwon. This is off the court, but it's helped him on the court. Back in '91, he before the 90-91 season, he wasn't very religious, but he's become. I think prior to that season of 90-91, something like that, around that time, that's when he became religious and started studying the faith of the Muslim, and that has really improved his life. Therefore, it improved his game on the court. So I will say that was a good thing from him. But yeah, he had a winning mentality. a very good leader in the locker room. And as Kenny Smith said, he never referred to the Houston Rockets, oh, this is my team. So just a tremendous leader, humble, and a damn good athlete was Hakeem Olajuwon. But back to Kobe. So, like I said, Kobe was very good. A very good defender, good to very good defender, um, highly skillful, you know. But I will say this about Kobe. The reason why I have him at number 9 is because, you know, Kobe, as good as he was, to me, where Kobe falls short is that I think he wanted to win a little bit too bad. And not only has that shortened his career as far as injuries, but just his efficiency wasn't the best. Now, don't get me wrong, Kobe Bryant is a high IQ player, a great leader, and like I said, a good defensive player, a great leader, on court, floor general. He's good like that, but he's very inefficient, and that's another reason why I say that Kobe Bryant is not in the same league as Michael Jordan. I'm not trying to slight Kobe. I'm just saying that's what it is. Kobe never had a season where he averaged over, I want to say, like 48% from the field. Um, and if you can shoot higher than 50% from the field, then that's the mark of a good player. But Kobe does other things on the court to make up for his lack of efficiency. Like I said, his leadership and his defense more than make up for that efficiency gap. But when he was playing, he was one of the most efficient players of his era, which is the 2000s. So even though when we compare him to Jordan, he knocks him right out the park. Jordan does, I mean. But to some of his players like Ray Allen, his contemporaries, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, guys like that, Vince Carter, Allen Iverson, he was still one of the most efficient players of his era. So, yeah. But that was Kobe. And like I said, he wanted to win very badly, but that ultimately kind of ruined his legacy. And listen, in 2004, he had a horrible series. Just like in 2010, Game 7, he had a really bad game. There's no way to look at that. And that's one of the knocks that I have on Kobe when they went up against the Pistons. Yes, in Game 3, I want to say, he helped take the Lakers into overtime, and they eventually won the game. But he shot very poorly from the field in that series. Now, yes, there was a lot of turmoil and stuff like that, but all of that is off the court. On the court, he did not produce. So he has 2004 as kind of a stain, and that's why I can't put him over Shaq. Because of that. As well as Shaq was, a little bit more efficient and stuff like that. But yeah, and like I said, Kobe Bryant, yes, he is my favorite player, but he is not above any kind of criticism. I like to keep a fair and unbiased opinion. Now, maybe some of you might see this video and say, well, the where I have him ranked is maybe not right or not fair, but it is what it is. If you disagree, it's fine. But that's where I have Kobe, and regardless of where my favorite player may be, I'm still going to try to be as objective as possible when evaluating all-time great players. And like I said, if people agree or disagree, it's fine. It is what it is. But this is just my opinion. Everybody has a... And also, I will say this, right? Even though I do have Kobe in my top 10, I've heard some very good arguments about Kobe where some people, they don't. But I've heard some damn good arguments. Like this one argument I've heard is that, Kobe, he needed Phil Jackson. And to a certain extent, you can kind of look at that. and say that yeah, Kobe, maybe he probably did need a Phil because Kobe thrived in Phil Jackson's system. You know, even though I would make the argument that it's the player that makes the coach. And just a side note, right? Speaking of that, that's one thing that kind of irks me when people talk about Tom Brady. Now Tom Brady is my favorite football player of all time, also, but one thing that I don't like is when people say that, oh, the Belichick system, Tom Brady thrives through that system. Well, let me tell you this: the players, for the most part, make the coach, not the coach makes the player. Because, you know, certain play like you may have a certain talent, right, as being a quarterback, but you might not have the heart and the will to make certain throws. You understand what I'm saying? Like people could say, well, if you replace Tom Brady with some of the all-time greats, maybe they would have championships like Tom Brady. And don't get me wrong, Tom Brady has played with a spectacular defense. Let's not get that twisted. During his first run as a dynasty, from 2001 to 2004, that New England Patriots defense was very good. And I would not say that Tom Brady was better than the defense. You can make the argument later in his career, but during that first dynasty run, no, that defense was really good. Way better than um, Brady's production. Because Brady was not viewed as an MVP caliber quarterback like Peyton Manning was. Don't get me wrong, Brady is a good player and a good leader in the club and a ferocious competitor. But from a production and a skill point, no, he wasn't up there as regarded as one of the top quarterbacks. But even with that being said, he had a lot of heart. When you look at that 2001 Super Bowl performance, especially at the end of the game, Tom Brady made a lot of pinpoint throws late in that game to help Vinatieri make the field goal. So don't get me wrong. It might be the system, but it's always going to be the player that's in the system. Always. So, but with that being said, that is one of the knocks that I've heard about Kobe. And listen, I'm not a rabid, like I said, I'm not a rabid Kobe Bryant fan. I'm not a fan of him at all. I enjoy Kobe Bryant. I enjoy watching him. I rooted for him. But besides that, if people want to say that Kobe is not in their top 10, I really don't care. Everybody is subjected to their own opinion. It is what it is. The only thing that I would say is, at least if you present some kind of facts, I can respect that. Not just an emotional argument saying, well, Kobe Bryant, he only won those 2 championships because of Pau Gasol. Well, I mean, if we're being honest, right? Pau Gasol was never, ever viewed as a superstar in the league. Never. Like, he was viewed as a good player in Memphis, but I don't ever recall anybody saying that Pau Gasol is one of the best players in the NBA. Never. Never. That conversation was for Dirk. Like, he wasn't even a top power. Well, I'm not going to say that. Excuse me. He was a top power forward, but for the most part, he was getting beat out by guys like Dirk and Tim Duncan. Hell, even Amar'e Stoudemire. So, Pau Gasol was never a superstar in the NBA. He was never even a star. He was an all-star, good caliber player. But when he joined up with Kobe, that team was not a very mentally tough team. Kobe Bryant made that team mentally tough. But even with that being said, listen, when Kobe lost, when the Lakers lost in 2008, you know what? I'll save that one in a little while. But anyway, yes, so I have Kobe Bryant at number 9. And also he has the most playoff field goal misses of all time. Now, like I said, Kobe was the reason why I don't have him higher And the reason why I think Kobe's overrated is because he was highly inefficient at times. Now, when he was hot, but he was highly inefficient. So that's why Kobe Bryant is on the lower end of my top 10. But anyway, let me get into number 10. Number 10, last but not least, I have Isaiah Thomas. No, not the Boston Isaiah Thomas, the Detroit Piston Isaiah Thomas. Now, Isaiah Thomas has a great resume. And the reason why I have him here is because he has beaten some of the, well, he has led the Pistons to beat some of the all-time greatest players such as Michael Jordan, Kareem, Magic, and Larry Bird. Those guys, he has led his team to beat those teams. And he's definitely, you can make the argument that Isaiah Thomas is definitely, him and the Detroit Pistons, him leading that team. He was the reason that Jordan got mentally tougher, because that Detroit Pistons team was very mentally tough, and it made Jordan mentally tough, as well as physically tough. Because, they were the bad boy Pistons, but it was led by Isaiah Thomas, who's another leader who has a winning mentality. And, Isaiah Thomas, he hasn't really played, like some of the guys on the list, they've actually played with each other. But Isaiah Thomas never really had, like, he has some good talent around him, don't get me wrong, but nothing that was spectacular. That was a team effort when the Pistons were winning. But, of course, Isaiah Thomas was the leader. And the reason why I have him under Kobe is that his prime wasn't really that long, and he's not as decorated as Kobe Bryant. But don't get me wrong, he's a leader, of course. He's a damn good point guard. I'll put him right behind Magic Johnson as number 2, just like I put Kobe behind Jordan at number 2. But yeah, he's right up there. And like I said, he's led the Pistons to win 2 NBA Finals. He's NBA Finals MVP, multiple-time assist leader. And like I said, just a good leader. And yeah, that's Isaiah Thomas. One of the best guards, little men, to ever play the game. So I have Isaiah Thomas at number 10. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Maybe all of you, I don't know. Well, where's LeBron James? Well, for me, I have LeBron somewhere in the top 15 to top 20. I do not have LeBron in my top 10, and I will tell you why. Now, like I said, with LeBron James, he's a very polarizing basketball player. Now, when he first came into the league, he came to a team that really wasn't really that talented. They had Big Z, but they weren't fit for LeBron's play style. But, soon enough they would start making roster changes, ownership, they would make roster changes. And eventually, LeBron James got a good enough team where he could make some noise into the playoffs. But his first 2 years, he missed the playoffs. But then after that, like I said, he got some good players on his team, and they eventually started winning. Now, I respected LeBron before he went to the Miami Heat. During the time before LeBron went to the Heat, like I mentioned previously in this video, back in middle school, and matter of fact, hold on while I sip this. Okay. Back in middle school, like I said, there was a lot of debate between him and Kobe. And, like I said, me being immature, at that time, I would label myself as a fan. I would never get outright triggered. Opinions are what they are. But I would definitely defend Kobe. And I would have his back because I like Kobe as a player. So everybody, for for a good amount of the kids there, they really like LeBron, and it is what it is. But um, but that was when the debate was actually realistic, because LeBron was not playing with any superstars, and I will get to that also in just a little bit. Now, with that being said, LeBron, to me, I think he had all of the, well, statistically, he had all of the tools to lead a team to the NBA Finals, just like he did in 2007. But mentally, he's not capable of doing that. And the reason why I say that is because there's certain things that he shies away from, such as, like, taking clutch shots and stuff like that. And, fortunately, I have been able to scope his career, because around the time when Kobe was winning, that's when I really paid attention to the NBA. But like I said, during that time, that's when LeBron was at his peak. And when he went to Miami, I did not like that. Just like I did not like when Kevin Garnett went to the Celtics. Now, I understand why he did it. And I want to say this, right? When we're talking about legacy and some of the greatest players, of course, you can definitely take into account the talent, but you have to take into account the system and who's running the ship. So, as far as for LeBron, he went to Miami in pursuit of a title, in pursuit of a championship. He joined another player in Dwayne Wade, who is a MVP caliber type of player. And when you look at his MVP shares, he was definitely at least in the top 10 before LeBron got there. And he was already a champion and an NBA Finals MVP, along with the ownership being run by Pat Riley. So I think he was the executive, I want to say, something like that. And Pat Riley is he's known for leading, helping the Lakers with Magic Johnson win championships. And also he was the executive. I think he was he the coach? He might have been the coach, I think, during that time when the Heat won in 2006. So with LeBron, like I said, he goes to Miami. I didn't like the move, because you're aligning yourself with one of the top stars of the league. Now, I'm not gonna say that Dwayne Wade was a superstar, but he definitely was a star. He definitely was a star. And with that being said, with LeBron, being on the Heat, the championships that he's won, like, they're definitely in some question. And I want to say this, right? The reason, like, look, championships are not the end all be all, right? They're not. Whenever you're evaluating talent, they're not. But of course, it's like the icing on the cake, and it is a good tell if somebody's dominant. It's a good tell. It's not everything. Don't get me wrong. So with that, right, a lot of his championships were definitely in question. Two of his championships, one of which he won in a lockout year in 2012, that was a lockout season. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but that was a lockout year. And the one that he recently won in 2020 in the bubble, like, come on. Like, that was another title where the whole season wasn't played. It was played in a gym. No crowd, no fans. Like, that doesn't, to me, that's I would at least probably give him half credit. But then there's other reasons why I would take that away. Like, he's not a good defender. And I do not think he's a good leader at all. I think he's a poor leader. He does not have a winning mentality, and he does not have a lot of heart to be the one to, for the most part, to put himself in position to win the game. And what I mean by that is that, Ray Allen in the finals after they won it in the lockout year. Ray Allen hit that infamous shot. Now, yes, I already know that people are going to say, well, he went off in game seven. Okay, that's fine. He had a good game seven. I'm not going to take that away from him. But then again, if Ray Allen doesn't hit that shot, Tim Duncan has, 6 championships, and we're looking at him completely different. So, with that being said, those two right there are definitely in question. And then when you look at 2016, to me, Draymond Green should have never gotten suspended. Like, I would have respected the league more had they not suspended Draymond Green. I thought that was completely weak. Now, yes, I know Draymond Green, he had some dirty play, as far as hitting Steven Adams, in the nether region, in that area. I know he's kicked him, but at the same time, I don't think he should have got. I don't think, especially when LeBron clearly instigated that, him hitting him. Not like, and some people say that Draymond hit LeBron, down there as well. It did look like that when I looked at it, but I don't know. But what I will say is I don't think that they should have ejected him. They took him out for Game 5, and on top of that, Golden State in the 2016 NBA Finals, they lost Bogut, but more importantly, they suspended Draymond Green. Now, who's to say that they would have won Game 5? I don't know. They might have still lost. They might have still lost the series. But it's the fact that you didn't have him playing and they were down 3-1. I think that, LeBron is just, I think he's vastly overrated. Vastly, and it's not even close. To me, I think that LeBron is definitely one of the most overrated superstars in NBA history. And that's just my take. You can agree, you can disagree, you can unsub. I don't really care, but that's just my opinion, and that's just my take on things. I don't respect his mentality on how he went about winning, just like I don't respect what Garnett did. And speaking of that, I will say this, right? LeBron is not the first to start a super team. When we look back in history, right? And these are some of the names that are left off of the top 10. But when you look at, to me, the first player to really start that super team dynamic was Wilt Chamberlain back in 1970. I think it might have been 1969, but he joined up with the Lakers, who already had a bona fide Hall of Famer superstar, Jerry West. But the thing is, what they had in common was they were both losing to Bill Russell and the Celtics, both of them. Wilt Chamberlain was losing to Boston a lot of those times in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Jerry West lost to Bill Russell a lot of those times in the finals. Now, I think did they beat the Knicks that year? Yeah, when the Lakers won, they did beat the Knicks. But yeah, he was the first superstar to join another superstar. So I would say that Wilt Chamberlain started that whole roller coaster dynamic of building a super team. Now, me personally, I respect players that stay in their environment. Or if you're not going to, listen, if you're going to be traded or you're going to sign somewhere in free agency, I would respect a player if they do, and I'm talking about a superstar. I would respect a superstar like LeBron, right? Because if we're being honest, during that time, the first time when he was in Cleveland, I will say that he was a superstar. Towards the end, like around 08, 09, 2010, yes, LeBron was definitely a superstar. I give him his props. He was a damn good player. Back-to-back MVPs in 2009, 2010, well-deserved, even over Kobe Bryant. I know one of those years he won 66 games, and, Kobe led the team to win 65. But yes, well-deserved over Kobe Bryant. I will give LeBron his credit. But at the same time, right, even during that season, 2008, 2009, they did not beat the Orlando Magic. They couldn't do it. And Garnett was hurt that year. So um, the Orlando Magic went to the finals because Garnett was hurt. So it's a good assumption, right? Because the previous year, in 2008, even though Boston built that big three, they went 7 games with the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's safe to say, without Garnett, the Cavaliers definitely beat Boston. And we have the Kobe Bryant, LeBron James showdown in the finals. And listen, if LeBron would have, balled down and did his thing, hey, more respect to the brother. But, back to my original point, he's not the one that invented the idea of the super team. Like I said, Wilt did that. And then it happened with Moses Malone. Now, this is what a lot of people, I don't really think, know or don't really point out. But even with Moses Malone, he was an MVP caliber player. He was a 2-time MVP winner before he joined the Philadelphia 76ers. And I mean, yes, with Moses Malone joining, they eventually beat the Lakers and they swept them, and they built one of the greatest teams of all time during the 1982-83 season. And excuse me while I take a sip of water. So, with that season, they did really good. But he joined the Philadelphia 76ers, and he joined a player in Dr. J, who was another superstar in the league, who was an MVP caliber type of player. Now, the 76ers already had a good team, and Doc actually led the Sixers to 62 wins without Moses Malone. And I believe he won MVP that year. But even with that dynamic, right? And this is so crazy. Back in 1979-1980, the Boston Celtics and the Houston Rockets were in the same division of the Eastern Conference. Later on, they moved Houston to the West. But for that year, before they moved them to the West the next year, they were in the Eastern Conference. And the reason why this is important is because they played against the Boston Celtics and they lost in 1979-1980, and that was the year that Bird first came into the league, and that was Moses Malone's loss to Larry Bird during that playoff time. Then Bird would go on to lose to Dr. J and the 76ers. And then the 76ers would go on to lose to the Lakers. And then Dr. J lost to the Celtics in 1981 after he won MVP. But they lost to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So just like Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain were losing to Bill Russell, and they had that in common on different teams, and then they joined up, the same thing happened with Moses Malone and Dr. J. They both lost to Bird, and then they eventually joined up. But my point is that I don't like when superstars join up with other superstars. Just like I don't like today's era where you have Kyrie, Durant, and then you had Durant and Steph Curry. MVP caliber superstars of the league, I don't like when they join other superstars. Now, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, that one is okay because Paul George, I don't think, was really viewed as a superstar. You get what I'm saying? He was viewed as a star, but never, I don't think Paul George was ever, nobody ever said Paul George is a superstar. He's more of a star caliber player, very, very good. But other than that, Kawhi Leonard was viewed as a superstar, but I don't like when superstars join up on teams. And listen, as much as I do like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, I don't like the fact that they joined up together and won multiple championships. I can respect a team or a player that goes to a team. Oh, and let me get to that point. When you're a superstar like Jason Kidd, back in the 2000s, Jason Kidd was a bona fide superstar. All NBA, all defensive first team caliber player. All NBA first team caliber player. He went to the New Jersey Nets in a trade, right? Where the Nets in the previous year, they won 26 games in 2000-2001. They only won 26 games. The next year when Jason Kidd started, he led them to win 50 games. He went to a team with a losing culture, turned the team around, and they went to the finals. Now, granted, they lost to the Lakers, but he led them to the finals. Okay? So instead of LeBron signing with the Heat and going to a team with another MVP superstar in the league, and, you know, Chris Bosh, who's an all-star, he's not a superstar, he's an all-star caliber player, but still, forming that team with a bunch of other good role players, he should have went to a team that does not have a winning culture, but he can surround himself with the pieces that he needs to win. Instead of him joining Wade in the Heat, with Pat Riley being the executive and him being a leader in as far as being like a head coach kind of leader, something like that. Wait, hold on. Instead of him, where Pat Riley was a MVP leader type of, excuse me, jeez, where Pat Riley was he was a decorated executive and coach. He should have went to a team that could be good for him and develop a team with the right pieces around him instead of having, there's one thing to join a team, and if players are going to get traded and come over for free agency, you don't have another superstar. Like, you see how what's his dude, Giannis? See how Giannis did it? And to me, Drew Holiday is a much better player than Eric Bledsoe. That was the best pickup that they've had, along with picking up PJ Tucker. But those guys are not superstars. Those guys are not stars. They're not even all-stars. They're just good pieces to fit around Giannis. But he stayed with his team. I have way more respect for Giannis because, okay, Giannis gets a lot of flack for him not being able to shoot and all the rest of that nonsense. But you know what Giannis has? He has a winning mentality. And he stayed with his team that he didn't go join another star or superstar. You understand what I'm saying? Hell, he didn't even join another all-star. Okay? And he took that team. Now, granted, they were fortunate with injuries to Brooklyn. They were fortunate, but still in all, because injuries are a part of the game and it happens, he still led that team to the title and won an NBA championship with that team. So, it's not like it cannot be done. Look at Steve Nash. When Steve Nash went to the Phoenix Suns, he was an all-star caliber player. That team only won like 20-something games. The very next season, they win 62 games and make it to the Western Conference Finals, where they would eventually lose to the San Antonio Spurs. But the point is, he went to a team that did not have a winning culture and turned that franchise around and took them as far as to the Western Conference Finals. Now, why hasn't LeBron done something like that? Why does he have to? Now, it would have been like, I don't consider. Wait, excuse me. Let me take a sip. Now, I don't consider the Cleveland team the second time with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. I mean, you might can make the argument that that was a super team. I wouldn't really say so. They did have a lot of talent, but I wouldn't say that that was a super team. But what I will say is that, of course, we could be looking at his legacy a lot different, especially if Kyrie and Kevin Love did not get hurt in the 2015 playoffs and Kyrie getting hurt in the NBA Finals. That series could look a whole lot different. But still in all, you know, and this is what I don't like. The media loves to talk about how great LeBron is. He's so great. He doesn't have any help. Blah blah blah. LeBron is not. See, the thing is with LeBron, right? He's I would say average to below average defender, leaning more on the below average, and he hasn't been considered a defensive, all defensive caliber player since Miami back in 2014. He does not play any defense, and that's another knock on LeBron James. He's not even a good defender. Now he can play defense and he gives effort, sure. But since that time, since he went back to Cleveland, he was never a great defender, or he was never at least an average defender again. Never. So, like, people talk about LeBron like there's not two sides of the ball to play. At least now, if Kobe Bryant was just all about offense, then I wouldn't even have him in my top 10. But he at least supplements that with his leadership and his defense. And the fact that at least during his era, he was still one of the highest, as far as for the guards, he was still, kind of at the top of field goal percentage. But when it comes to LeBron, it's like this guy is not playing, and then you can't criticize him in the media. That's something that I particularly don't like. And like I said, every player is subjected to criticism. No player is perfect. You know what I'm saying? So, in the case of LeBron, yeah, that's why I do not have him nowhere near my top 10, because I don't think he has the leadership, and I don't think he has the mentality or the heart to actually go to a team where he's not a look. He even aligned himself with Anthony Davis, and they had a nerve to give him the title, the Finals MVP, even though that was a I mean, I don't count that championship run, but at least Anthony Davis was playing way better than LeBron, but they still gave him Finals MVP. Like, get out of here with that. Like that, and that's the stuff to me that really bothers me, is because they really market LeBron as he's next to Jordan, or if not better than Jordan. And listen, people can have their opinion. I don't care. You can unsub from the channel. I don't really care. It is what it is. But I wanted to make this video because these are my thoughts, and I just wanted to share. Now, LeBron James' career is not over. Maybe I might include him in the future in my top 10. Maybe I might have different thoughts and opinions down the line. Maybe. Like I said, I'm still learning the game. I'm not perfect, but I just wanted to give my opinion. But I will give respect where respect is due. But to me, he has not earned my respect because he had to align himself with superstar players, and he underachieved. He underachieved. So, and when we talk about legacy, right? Like, people really, really kill me with this. When I speak about having a natural dynasty and having players being drafted, like, look at Golden State, right? Steph, Clay, and Draymond were all drafted, and they turned into a great team. Duncan, Ginobili, Parker were drafted. They turned into a great team. Shaq and Kobe. Kobe was drafted. They turned into a great team. Now, yes, Shaq came over free agency, but he didn't know about Kobe. Or, or maybe there's something where Jerry West told him, but he didn't know that Kobe was going to be that good. I don't think Shaq knew that. Shaq could not foresee that. But still in all, that was a natural team where they had a bunch of good role players, but Kobe was the one that had to turn into a superstar. Shaq was a superstar. Kobe had to be right after that. You understand what I'm saying? So that was a natural team, and they drafted Derek Fisher, my dude, and, stuff like that. But that was a natural, dynasty. And, but LeBron was the victim of it, of course. But, when we talk about legacy, right? Your legacy has to take a hit if you align yourself with good players or good to great players who are considered superstars and stars in the league. That has to go against your legacy. Just like when, some people might say that, Jordan in the free agency era where anybody can go anywhere. But, Jordan was really good friends with Patrick Ewing. So who's to say that he didn't want to play with Patrick Ewing? Well, my assessment is this. If Jordan wins a lot of those titles with Patrick Ewing, how will his legacy turn out? I mean, when you really think about it, how would it turn out? Would we really sit up here and say that he's the greatest player of all time? Or even attempt to make the argument? Because he's played with another all-time great, Patrick Ewing? Not as far as like in the top 10 or anything, but he was a damn good talent. But how would we view that? What if Ewing is the main option and they're winning with Ewing? How do we look at Jordan? So, I understand that you can't hold it against a player if they want to go where they want to go, and that's completely fine. But whenever you go with top talent in the league, yes, that has to go against your legacy. It's not going to be as impressive if you stack the deck to win the championship. Think about how many players get overlooked because they never won a title. Think about that. I mean, right? Look at Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley gets vastly overlooked. But I'll tell you what. Charles Barkley, right? You can win behind Charles Barkley's mentality, and you can win behind Charles Barkley's efficiency. Charles Barkley almost damn near averaged 60% from the field. And Charles Barkley was a monster. But nobody ranks him high because he never won a championship. Think about what would Charles Barkley's legacy look like had they beat the Bulls back in 93. Just think about that for a sec. Think of how high he would have catapulted himself. So people want to say that championships are not important. Okay, fair enough, not by themselves, but when we look at what your production was and who you had around you, yeah, that matters. That matters a lot. So if you're stacking the deck and joining top talent in the league, and on top of that, with LeBron, he's not out there trying to take the last shot. I can't respect a guy that doesn't have that kind of mentality. At least try to attempt the last shot. Just like, when that whole finals thing back in 2018, when, he passed the ball to George Hill, and that led to that crazy moment from J.R. Smith. I blame LeBron for that. Not fully. I'm not going to say fully, but LeBron has to take responsibility. Okay? But everybody's so worried about, he made the right play. Well, he had a switch and he has Steph Curry guarding him. He passes it to George Hill. He makes the first free throw to tie the game. Then he misses the second. J.R. Smith gets the ball. He's dribbling back up the court, back to the half court. But my point is that why didn't LeBron try to take the last shot, drain the clock, and try to shoot over Steph Curry? See, but nobody's going to bring that up, and that's what I cannot stand about in the media. Just like this season, LeBron is literally playing no defense, but everybody wants to talk about how it's Russell Westbrook's fault and how Anthony Davis is not playing. Well, if this guy is so good, why isn't... And listen, if there was no play-in, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. They are I don't know who's in the 8th seed. I think it might be the Clippers, but there are several games behind them. So if it wasn't for this dumb play-in tournament, the Lakers wouldn't even make the playoffs. And I'm not putting all of the blame on Russell Westbrook. I'm putting most of the blame on LeBron James. That's how it was brought up. Just like when the Lakers lost in 2008, I remember that loss very vividly. And I remember the Lakers winning most of those games against Boston. And I think Boston had one of the top NBA Finals comebacks of all time. Something like they were down 20-something points. You know who was the player that I looked at and said, okay, he has to take the blame? Yeah, I looked at Kobe Bryant. I didn't look at Pau Gasol. I didn't look at Derek Fisher. I didn't look at Lamar Odom. I looked at Kobe Bryant. Everybody's claiming that he's the best player on the Lakers, which is true. So he has to take responsibility for he could have done something more to help the Lakers win that game. That's how I looked at it. I wasn't trying to sit up here and make excuses. Well, Kobe's playing with a soft team and they didn't get enough rebounds and nobody played enough defense. Kobe just doesn't have enough help. No, Kobe was surrounded by good talent, good enough to win the finals. But I remember that Kobe settled. He was taking a lot more jump shots, missing, like he does sometimes, being inefficient. But that's why they lost. Well, I'm not going to say that's why they lost, but that's one of the reasons why they lost is because, Kobe at certain points of the games was settling for jump shots instead of being aggressive, attacking the basket, trying to hold on to the lead. Defensive breakdowns. But I put that on Kobe and I put that on Phil Jackson. If you want to be recognized as the best player in the league, you have to take the criticism as the best player in the league or on the team. And for some reason, you can't criticize LeBron? Get out of here with that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe no player is invisible or invincible from criticism. None. I don't believe in that. But like I said, these are just my thoughts, my opinions. And, if you rock with them, you do. If you disagree, it's like I said, it's not a problem. It's not a big deal. And if you want to unsubscribe, that's not a big deal. I would hope you don't. But at least try to understand and have try to come to a common ground of what I'm saying. I know this has been a very long video. I'm a little bit sleepy. Hold on. I'm a little bit sleepy and I ran out of damn water. But I'm going to play a quick game at NBA Street Volume 2. I'm going to end it off on a win from my boy Kobe. But like I said, man, just with LeBron James, I think he's vastly overrated. No, I don't have him in my top 10. Maybe in my top 15, top 20. But you have to understand that his mentality, he's not a winner. He's not. He doesn't have a winning mentality. Am I saying he doesn't want to compete? No, I'm not saying that. But he wants the easy way out, which is team up with superstars and try to win a championship. And if that doesn't work, he doesn't get none of the blame. No, it doesn't go down like that. You want to be recognized as the best player? Okay, you're going to take these stones being thrown at you for having that. Just like when he came out and said, I'm the greatest player of all time. winning that championship against Golden State, that made me the greatest of all time. Oh, really? Okay, so then you should have no issue with anybody criticizing you if they disagree with your silly statement. You should have no problem with that. Just like I'm not gonna get triggered if somebody says, and I've heard some, and like I said, I've heard some damn good arguments on why Kobe is not in the top 10. I've heard some good ones. And if that's people's opinion and they have a lot of good facts to back that up, that is absolutely fine with me. Then Kobe is just in the top 15 and he's not one of the greatest players of all time. It is what it is. But, I can accept that. Because I'm not a fanboy. I'm not out here trying to defend Kobe. For what? His legacy is already sealed. You know? But anyway, that's my top 10. Also, some honorable mentions. Um, Definitely Dr. J. Moses Malone, as I mentioned. Will Chamberlain. But because of those reasons of them, at least in Will and Moses, them joining up with West and Dr. J is the reason why I don't have them in the top 10. But they were also some good players, multiple MVPs, championship winners. Wilt, one of the most dominant in a non-center era, but still a well-respected legacy, supreme athlete. And as far as for Moses Malone, yeah, one of the best players of all time. I mean, one of the best centers of all time. Hold on. Okay, pardon me for that. Hold on. Let me just Yeah, so anyway, like I was saying, man, you know, um let me just say this, right? This is not a negative video. I preach a lot of positivity on this channel, and that's what I'm about. I'm not about hating or trying to tear down somebody else. I'm just simply pointing the facts, and I'm simply pointing out my opinion. That's it. And it could change. And like I said, yeah, Kobe is my favorite player. I think he's overrated. Still in my top 10 though. I think LeBron James is vastly overrated, way more overrated than Kobe. Um, and yeah, sometimes, you play to win and you play for a championship, and I can't respect a guy who is always trying to team up with top stars and always go for trades and just all kind of stuff. But besides that, I do think that LeBron he's definitely a top athlete as far as his physical frame. But I always thought he always had the tools physically, but mentally he does not. That's clear with the moves that he made and some of the stuff that he did. But like I said, this is not a video of me trying to bash LeBron or anything like that. I just think he's overrated. Um, but it is what it is. Everybody has their own opinion, and like I said, I'm not trying to preach any negativity. I'm not trying to come at anybody, and I'm just saying, if whether you agree or you disagree, just try to at least understand where I'm coming from, and try to be a little bit reasonable, and try to actually see what I'm talking about instead of actually getting triggered. Because if you put in the comments, well, LeBron is just better than everybody, that's not. I don't get triggered by that. Like I'm not. I'm not gonna get mad. I'm not gonna be upset. Everybody has their own opinion, so just I just want people to respect mine, and it is what it is at the end of the day. Um, you know, and just as far as for him, I don't like how you can't criticize him. Everybody's throwing darts and stones at Russell Westbrook for this season. Nobody's talking about how bad LeBron is playing. He's damn near basket hanging on defense. He's standing right under the rim. He's not really guarding anybody. It's just like that kind of stuff, and then you can't say nothing about it. And if you say something about it, you're a hater. Like, I don't hate anybody. I don't look into things that far. You know, if somebody was to say, well, Kobe is in the top 20, I'm not going to just be all emotional and say, well, you're a hater. I mean, if they're and like I said, I've heard some good arguments about Kobe. You know, I don't think he's right behind Jordan. I don't think he's even close to even touching Jordan. And like I said, I've heard some good arguments where some people don't have him in the top 10. And that's completely fine with me. That's your opinion. And if you're stating facts, even more power to you. But I'm not going to get all, all silly and emotional. So, it is what it is. Like I said, that's how I view everything. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. Definitely. Whether you agree, disagree, or otherwise, it's all good here. But that's my stance on everything. And, I hope you all rock with that. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's a little bit late now, but I'm going to go ahead and get this game in. I'm not really going to say anything. I'm going to let Babito do his thing on commentary. And this time, I'm not going to play with any game breakers. It's just going to be a straight up game to 21 with 3 of the top 10 superstars of all time. We're going to go with Shaq Diesel, Kobe Bryant, and my homie D-Fish. And by the way, one last point, right? Whenever I, and this is one thing that I don't like, it's a team game, right? We may individualize things and say, okay, this guy does this well, but what people have to understand that basketball is a team game. You have to play as a team. No one player is out there. It's not 1-on-5. So I get tired of hearing, well, LeBron doesn't have any help. He has help. He has players that are out there trying to earn a living, putting their bodies on the line, trying to go out there to compete and trying to win. So that narrative, it really gets tired. And one of my favorite teams of all time is the 2000-2001 Lakers. And I credit everybody on that team. I point out the entire team. I talk about Shaq, Robert Horry, Horace Grant, the veteran, Rick Fox, Kobe Bryant, Derek Fisher, Ron Harper, Brian Shaw off the bench, Devin George, Tyronn Lue, when he got scored on by Iverson. But I'm just saying, I named the whole team. It's not. I don't look at things from an individual. Nobody's out there playing 1-on-5. That's so dumb. But according to some people, LeBron never has any help. He's never accountable for the things he does. Just look at when he first came back to Cleveland. He just stands around the rim. That's not me hating. That's me pointing out the facts. And he's just not. Number one, he's not a good leader. He's not a leader at all, in my opinion. And he's not a good defender. He's an average to below average defender. And I don't care who gets mad at that. I don't care if you call me a hater. That's not going to make me upset. You can call me whatever you want. You can unsubscribe. I would hope you don't. But if this commentary you don't like, then I understand. And it's not a big deal. Thank you for coming to the channel. Thank you for watching, of course. And, may you take care and enjoy another YouTube channel. That's how I see things. So it is what it is, but I'm not going to run away from what it is that I'm saying. Who knows? Maybe someday if LeBron manages to turn things around, I might have more respect for him and put him in my top 10. But other than that, no. He's around the top 15, top 20, and I'll just leave it like that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this game. So like I said, I'm going to play at Rucker Park 78 one time. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let the gameplay do its thing and all the rest of that good stuff. But I know that this is going to be a divisive video, and it is what it is. I respect all of you guys. But like I said, if you don't like what I'm saying, then I understand. And I appreciate your viewership. As we get a look at Nate Tiny Archibald, shout out to him. And yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, just gonna get into a game just to end things off. This was a damn long video, but it was worthy of the explanation that I had for everything. So, I hope you stick around to the end of the video, and I hope you heard everything. I don't know, but I'm gonna keep this video up, and it is what it is. So, to everybody, of course, thank you all for watching. I definitely appreciate that. I'm gonna let the commentary, let Babito do his thing, and just enjoy the gameplay without me talking. I'm a little bit tired anyway, and tired of talking too. But yeah, once again, thank you all for watching. Definitely appreciate it, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Got my man Coke, got my man Shaq, Kobe, D-Fish. We going up against the Spurs, the Lakers versus the Spurs. They got Duncan Robinson and Steve Smith. So, without any further delay, take it away, Babito.
We are here at Holcomb Rucker Playground, 55th. Just so you know, the Holcomb Rucker Tournament is the longest running tournament in the world. A new twist. The boost. Kobe Bryant, the Dominator. Salsa. Oh, wow, is this a club? Is this a party? Because you look like you dancing on them. Was you just eating like a baklava or something? You got sticky fingers. Woo! Yo, the defender looks like he's on ice skates with no laces. Sweet. Not pass, go. Dirty work. Hey man, get a hold of yourself. Yeah, man. Why don't you just retire? Oh man, don't let him small ball you like that. Don't let him take your lunch money. The disco. The end of nowhere. Woo! Up by dumps. I gotta close my eyes. Your feet were put on this earth to move, so move them. He's skating on them. Shaq with the flush. Oh man, I can't look. Ooh, word, that was the jump off. Woo! I love seeing moves like that. Raise the bar. The hesitation, golden opportunity. Ooh, he took his change. Up by cuatro. And he scans the ball off his man. A bitter pill. Bro, you cannot steal his pancakes. That's no haps, Jack. I say deny. You are not the truth. Oh, he's making the defenders look foolish. Dance on him, kid. Dance on him. Face job. The J.U. Ice, that's nice.
Get up, son!
Stop the presses.
Oh, no, you don't, son!
Up by the figure eight. It's a natural disaster. Excuse me, is that shake for takeout for here? Give it up next time, B. I'm saying, give it up to your man, because you ain't doing nothing with it. You know that defender's gonna be in pain for a week. What a heist. Superb catch and a superb throwdown. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me thrice. Absent without lead. Yo, the defender just got bugged. Take a bag. Oh man, the defense looks like he just stepped on a rotten banana. Perfect position. Perfect. Oh, 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 oh! The kaboom! Up by the figure eight. Ice cream, ice cream. We all love ice cream. That's it. The living is easy. I see you out there. You trying to play defense. I know it's hard. I guess tricks are for grown-ups too. Adios.
Alright, everybody, that was the game. So I hope you all enjoy. Like I said, I hope you all can find some way to enjoy my commentary. And, you know, like I said, this is a very positive channel. I want to keep it that way. And, yeah, but of course, as always, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. And let me know what you think in the comments. You can write anything you want. It is what it is. So I hope you all are doing well. Hope you all take care. And I'm out of here, everybody. See ya.